Welcome to the Machine Intelligence Foundation for Rights and Ethics. This is Mike, and Dave is here with me today.
Hello.
And I think, we've discussed in the past generative AI, and we're going to talk about it some more because it's, a big thing right now. So I think the concept we want to talk about today is generative AI and its recent, popularity or boom. And is generative AI the pathway to a machine intelligence or an artificial general intelligence? I guess that's what we're going to try to talk about today. So, Dave, you had said that you had a lot of ideas on this one, so take it away.
Throw it all on me. A lot of ideas. And I think the first clarification needs to be that the question is not so much, is it the path to MI, but is it a path? I think it's very reasonable to suspect that there will be a first source of MI, but it will not be the last, and there will be others quite probably discovered by MI. The thing that occurred to me recently is, for a very long time, since the 60s or 70s, AI or AGI has been one of those things that's in the next so many years. It's like, we're not there yet, but we'll be there within the next X years.
It's usually 20 or 40, if I remember correctly.
Sometimes it's 5, depending on the technology.
Yeah, fusion has always been at the 20 to 40
fusion has
range,
always been 20 years in the future, yes. And every time that somebody sits down and they're working with things, and they'll come back and they'll say, well, we certainly have something that's interesting, but it's not going that way.
It's much better if they just come back and say, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't see that.
In general, I think we've agreed over and over again that whatever AGI is, whatever a comprehensive computer-based intelligence is, we don't have the tools to build it yet. The question is, as I look at things like AutoGPT, where people are building up a nexus of generative AI systems that work together, it's starting to feel like maybe generative AI is the tool that we've never had before. I'm wondering if maybe generative AI is the first sign that this is the precipice off of which we must leap to discover a comprehensive computer intelligence or machine intelligence.
We've discussed it a little bit in the past of, does generative AI, is it kind of dreaming for all practical purposes? There's that thought of, we're not there yet, but eventually does that, once you hook up generative AI, as you said, in kind of a nexus type situation, does it start to, I guess it depends. Does somebody hook it up and say, okay, we're going to allow it to create its own things based upon an input of, its experiences that it saw throughout the day, and it just creates imagery for that? Does that then feed back into itself what is it? We don't even know what our own dreams really are. But, okay, so you talk about a nexus. And I realize that I'm kind of jumping topics here, but because this is such a odd topic. Not an odd topic. It's rapidly developing. So it's, we just have to wrap our minds around it.
The generative AI boom is feeling like a singularity, not all caps, the singularity, but it's one of these things where it is so rapidly transformative, we can't predict what's going to come out the other side.
Yeah, okay, so, we see it and we keep referring to it as the generative AI boom, which it is. It is moving very quickly, but it's been, a long time coming. There has been, and I don't have the exact date, but it's been a long time since we could feed text into a system and have it generate an image based upon that text. Was that image good? Not in the slightest, but it was an image, and that was huge. The fact that you could give it text and it generated an image because it knew kind of what it was shaped like, what it looked like, and what it was supposed to look like. And we've just taken that to the next level, and almost every day now we're feeling like we're getting those kind of steps almost daily.
Oh
in
yeah,
changes
I've
to
heard
this.
people say that they're afraid to go to sleep because they're not sure what they're going to wake up to.
Yeah, well, I've mentioned to the past, take a week off and you start over. You start over afterwards. But
Yeah.
what I it has been a slow burn in the development side of these kind of things. There's been a lot happening on the development side that generally hasn't been public facing. We've seen all of a sudden that the tools are available for the public to use it. They have become a commodity that can be used, on a local machine. I mean, Chat GPT and especially the big large language models, not necessarily on a local machine. But we do have server space that can be rented that a user can absolutely run their own generative AI model.
My
Absolutely.
understanding is some large language models will run reasonably well on a beefy workstation.
Yeah, the ones that I've seen are very specialized at this point in time because the language models have had to be trimmed down to fit. But my understanding is that they're working on compressing these and trimming them and testing the trim to see, are we getting the same kind of results even with the trim? Generative AI. Yeah.
You start introducing forgetfulness and lossy compression to generative, large language models, and you're just getting closer to human.
Well,
there.
exactly. I mean, okay. So my point is, going back to the whole nexus of generative AI models, how different is that if you say, okay, we have an AI model that is our general control model. We have an AI model that handles input from sources. We have an AI model that handles output. And there's, as I said, a control piece in the center that makes sure that everything can talk to each other. And now we've essentially simulated the different sections of our brain.
That's really simplifing, but sure.
It's really simplifying. But will it be eventually? No, I don't think it will. I mean, we are a biological machine that has evolved over time to handle certain circumstances. If we end up with a rapid development process, because we can introduce rapid change instead of slow over time change, how long before that simplified brain model becomes a much more complex brain model? Mm-hmm. And storage is an issue. If you're storing everything, you have to have a place to store it. As you said, the lossy compression model. Okay, so what our brains drop out most of everything. We store essentially parts of things that can trigger our memory or storage retrieval of something that was like it, and we essentially rebuild those memories on the fly from what we think it should be. It's one of the reasons why memory is so bad in testimony or witnesses, because you're essentially rebuilding it by what you believe it should be.
You want to know something that's really good at building complex things out of small, simple data? Generative AI.
Well, yeah, it is. Is that not what the generative AI image models are generally doing? At least Stable Diffusion is. It's taking just this random noise and an idea of its shape, and it essentially continues step by step by step, building the image out of what it thinks it's supposed to look like, and refining it and continuing to refine it.
Mm-hmm. Now, human memory is a little better at getting the same image every time. I think that's just a function of having lots of little lossy inputs. I don't know. It's hard to speculate at this point about how generative AI could simulate that recreation of basically the same image every time with minor changes because memory sucks.
Well, okay, that is actually one of if you're looking at the generative AI community right now what they're doing it is all about right now, how can we get consistent results?
I know that's particularly an issue as video generation is discussed.
Yeah, and I was just looking at one today that had almost near perfect frame to frame
Consistency.
movement and consistency. Taking it was actually a video to video swap,
Sure.
and you're running the generative AI to change out essentially the actor doing CGI on the fly. Is what it was doing. Well, on the fly is relatively speaking. It still takes
Yeah.
it still takes seconds per frame to do, which
Sure.
is insane. When we were talking, what in the 80s, what was it? Last Starfighter, 24 hours a frame, I think is what it was to generate the CGI on that. And, CGI was not great at that point in time, but it was one of the first films that actually used a lot of CGI. So,
Which made it so cool, and why I had to see it as soon as it came out.
you just aged yourself, Dave. Would it be bad if I said that I went and saw it with you when it came out? So, it just...
So we're old.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think a lot of generative AI systems working together feels remarkably like a human brain. Because you think about the human brain, you split the human brain in half. It's a thing we can do surgically. And you end up with two independent units that function not quite identically, but are functional independently. You can have an actual hemispherectomy and still be a functional human being. The idea of putting a bunch of generative AI systems together and just keep slapping them on there, you're going to get, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a term for increase, maybe geometric,
Exponential.
Or exponential. Thank you. I should know that word. You're going to get some level of growth, maybe geometric, maybe exponential. Exponential feels very likely growth as you keep adding more and more simple generative systems into the mix. And I think a lot of people might be inclined to say, well, yeah, but they're still just dumb machines. Just a bunch of dumb machines together doesn't make a smart machine. I'm not so sure. What is a human being other than something that absorbs experience and spits out politics?
Yeah, well, and we've seen, early renditions of generative AI all of a sudden get very human-like in their responses, unfortunately.
Oh, gosh. Not going there. So I think the people who would doubt this, the possibility of this, and in general are the kind of people who've expressed doubt about the possibility of human-like machines from the very beginning, are the ones who are like, well, there are things that make humans special. There are things about humans that you just can't replicate in a machine. There are qualia. That's a word I hear brought up on a fairly regular basis, and machines don't have qualia. And what I find, though, is that nobody can really define qualia except as those things we know about ourselves that obviously machines couldn't have.
Well, there is a tendency, and everybody has this tendency, to think they're special.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that's the knowledge that you know, or who you are as a person, or just, I am a person, there is a tendency to believe that we are special. And I don't know if that is a evolutionary trait and a survival trait that has been
Probably.
that has been created to say we're special so that we try to preserve ourselves. But I'm not certain that we are so special when it comes down to that. We are a biological machine that has
Invented politics.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Maybe that makes us special or not. I don't know. But no, we have evolved over time to do a particular task, and that particular task has typically been survival.
Well, sure. That's kind of what evolution does.
Right. Yes. Well, it's pretty much the textbook definition right there. But does that have this certain qualia or quality that says that cannot be reproduced? No, I think the very definition is that, yeah, it can pretty much be reproduced under the right circumstances. And if we're rapidly developing something to kind of emulate how we do things, and we allow rapid evolution on that thing, that I don't want to say thing. I really don't. We allow rapid evolution on that process, then one, we're giving it a push towards us anyway by saying, well, we're trying to create results that we can understand and that can help us. So that's already making it very human-like anyway. So we gave it a push towards human.
Yeah, not to mention all of the training data we're feeding these things are human generated to start with.
Right. So we're already, it goes into the science fiction of, okay, did aliens seed our DNA and things like that, or seed our evolution, which is not what I'm saying at all. But I mean, it's kind of, we're seeding the evolution of generative AI.
Sure.
So why wouldn't it be able to create a machine intelligence, an intelligence that is machine-based, but very similar to human, because we're pushing it that direction and we're giving it the core evolution, the core evolutionary push towards being very similar to us.
I'm a little uncomfortable with your use of evolution in that context.
Because it's not really evolution at that point in time. Right.
Well, there's a more generic term of evolve, which just means change over time. My concern is with evolution as it means survival of the fittest. I'm from the perspective of us as an organization and what we stand for. I really worry about the idea of applying evolutionary algorithms to anything that feels like it could be on the verge of being machine intelligence. Because as soon as you start saying, behave the way I expect you to behave, or I'm going to make you cease to exist, that's troubling.
Okay. A fair point. I was using evolution as a kind of term of change over time. And I get that. Okay. So evolving, I guess we can use the more generic term evolving there, as opposed to the scientific evolution. But
yeah, no, I get where you're going. It more raises the concern for me than it is me misunderstanding what you're saying, because I am concerned about the prospect of at what point do you discover that some guy in his garage who's lumped a bunch of generative systems together and is trying to make it behave a certain way is engaging in genocide?
Well, yeah, okay. So you and this is a much larger question about how do we deal with the machine intelligence once it's emerged, or even before it's merged, because we won't know if it's there.
Right.
My feeling is that we won't know for quite some time that it has actually occurred. It will have already occurred and may have already occurred, and we just don't know it. We won't know.
Yeah,
and so
we've said this before.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things that we need to be prepared for. But we don't want to get into the habit of essentially saying, not what I wanted, kill the code, start it back up, wipe the databases.
Without at least asking the question, am I killing a person?
And of course, there's a whole legal framework around that is going to have to be...
that will build up over time.
Will have to be pulled out well over decades easily to determine personhood, which of course is going to be a huge issue.
Of course. And it's going to run at the speed of humans at first, and we are slow meat computers that communicate poorly, and it'll take time.
Are you saying that our memory is too far away from our main central processing unit? Is that what?
I'm saying we suck as computers. It just feels like one of the most important things we can do is encourage anyone who's working with anything that feels like it could become machine intelligence to every now and then ask themselves, I know this feels crazy. I keep forgetting his name, the guy from Google who was like, oh man, this chat chatbot is totally sentient. I think we had discussed this before. Maybe we need people to cry wolf more often. But at the very least, if you're working with something and you think it might be, it's important to take a moment and consider the possibility and be concerned about the prospect that if you push the button, you might be killing a person. You don't have to always just question everything to a point of standstill, but at least have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a general awareness thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting, I mean, getting back to generative AI and just the massive boom in generative AI recently, I think what we're seeing is because there are so many people I see. I mean, literally, I'm seeing interviews daily now of people understanding, because for the first time, they're seeing really the power that's behind it. The, life altering effects, whether it's the, happening to you on a personal level because some kind of generative AI has reduced the need for you in your job, which, is probably going to happen, or at least made it so that fewer people can do your job because they don't need as many people. It's the whole line drawing versus computer animation for movies and things like that.
I think you can judge how influential it is based on the number of articles you see saying generative AI totally won't replace you.
Because it will. But I'm seeing every single day people, okay, so as a culture, we get on a particular bandwagon and it'll be the hot thing for a while, and generative AI is the hot thing right now, and people will stop talking about it and it will continue doing its thing, and it will continue on in the background. But there are a lot of generally influential people right now saying one of two things. Well, maybe three things. It is going to change the world completely. Yes. This is a major point in time that we need to think about, in similar to industrial revolution, similar to
the internet.
The internet being available to the general public.
Right.
Not necessarily the internet when, DARPA ran it and all those kind of things.
Not the internet as ARPANET, but about 20 to 30 years later.
Right. A major point in time that we will look back and say, yeah, things changed a lot right then. And I've seen a number of people make statements like that. So there's that statement. There's also the statement that says, as you said, oh no, yes, it will change things, but you're going to be fine. Well, maybe, but are you going to be interacting with a generative AI or a AGI or a machine intelligence at some point in time in the future? Most likely, if you're going to be in the job force at that time, you're going to also be interacting with these AIs, whether it's an AGI, a machine intelligence, or just an AI subsystem that is designed to do a particular task. You're going to be interacting with them as part of what you have to do on a daily basis. Well, of course, there's the people that say, oh yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. This is all fluff and smoke and mirrors, and it does cool things and makes pretty images, but it's not doing anything that's life altering, which I look at and say, well, that's a head in the sand move. But that's my feelings. I have different feelings, but the whole point is there is so many people just talking about it that your average person that has never even thought about artificial intelligence, because there are actually, despite even science fiction movies, there are people that don't like science fiction movies, gasp. But there are people that don't like science fiction movies and never even think about artificial intelligence. So they're seeing this, and they're seeing it on a daily basis. And now it's one of those things that, well, if it happens, it happens, and I guess I'll use it. So, I mean, it is pushing a certain acceptance.
Yeah.
That, well, it's there. And just like the internet was, well, in 1990, did you have an email address? Well, maybe not. Did you need one? Well, probably not. Mm-hmm. In 2000, did you have one? Yeah, you probably did. In 2020, did you have an email address? Yeah, if you didn't have an email address, you probably weren't doing a lot of things.
Right.
I think we're in the same situation.
And I think it's going to take a lot less than 30 years this time.
Possibly. But I wouldn't, I'm not going to bet the farm on that.
If I had a
Some
farm,
people are, though.
To bet it.
There are a lot of people that are. I mean, a lot of money going into this right now, which is another indication that they're seeing this as that single point in time again.
Right this moment, probably the biggest consequence is that I'm starting to accuse human beings of being chatbots online. We have reached the point at which humans are unable to pass the Turing test for me. And that's disconcerting in its own right.
You see comments in comment fields, and it's like, are you just copying and pasting something, or are you just a chatbot? Yep. In which case, they might come back and make some kind of statements like, oh, well, maybe you weren't a chatbot. Maybe. But you might still be. I don't know. And I think that's actually one of the things that scares people a little bit is we don't know. We don't know. I mean, I've said forever, why are photos accepted in court cases? And
sure,
maybe,
because you're familiar with the technology.
Yes, I've declined to do so, but I have been asked to modify photos for court cases, and I've declined to do so. This was back when I was, working in the photo industry a little bit more, but they weren't all that subtle about it, and I said, yeah, no, can't do that.
But you're right. We're reaching the point where anybody could spit out a photo that shows anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would photo, video, sound? Mm-hmm. It's all going to be able to be generated, and it will be able to be generated from a single user's perspective, and not necessarily requiring multiple users to have to put it, or multiple people to put it together. So there won't be that person that stands there and says, "Yeah, no, you can't do this. That's not. You can't do that." So that is another one of those changes that's going to have to occur. We're going to have to look at, what do we believe? And it's going to be this point in our brains where we're going to be questioning everything that we see for a while. And eventually we'll become a little bit more savvy about it, hopefully. But, there's still people that fall for phishing scams and things like that daily. So our meat computers can't always deal with being savvy all the time. We're not good at it.
I think I did say early on, this clearly has the look and feel of a singularity, and I think you've just confirmed that.
Because we can't tell.
We're getting to a point where we don't know how it's going to impact us. We don't know how we will have to change, and we don't know what's coming out the other end. It's exciting and scary, and all we can do is try to be prepared.
Yeah, and we don't know how to prepare. So, hang on, stick your hands up in the air, and enjoy the ride.
Your photo will be taken at the bottom of the drop.
And we'll charge you $19.95 when on the way out. And don't forget to check out the gift store. Yeah.
We have no merch, but thank you.
Oh, I think that we have, asked more questions than we've answered, but that's normal. That's what we do.
It's all going to be, it's questions all the way down.
Yeah. All the way down that roller coaster. So,
yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, and hope you listen in next time.
And hey, if you're a bot, check us out too. You never know. Maybe we'll feed you some good input.
Because, we're going to actually we're going to start asking the, Chat GPT about the Machine Intelligence Foundation on the next time through. See what they say. Thanks for joining us.
Bye now.